Hello everyone, my name is Michael Warman and I will be presenting Adam Smith. First, I would like to bring attention to the sources I use for this information. Also, my email is shown on the top right corner if you have any further questions. I will start by giving a timeline of the major events in Adam Smith's life, and then I'll move on to give more detailed information about his ideas. So starting off with the timeline, the exact date of Adam Smith's birth is unknown. However, his baptism was recorded on June 5th, 1723 in Kirkcaldy, Scotland. From 1737 to 1740, Smith entered the University of Glasgow at the age of 14, where he studied Latin, Greek, logic, moral philosophy, mathematics, and natural philosophy. From 1751 to 1763, Smith was appointed the professor of logic at Glasgow University before changing to the position of chair of moral philosophy. In 1759, Adam Smith published his first work, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, which closely examined the moral thinking of his time. In 1776, Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations, which consisted of 5 volumes, and it was influential in its time and became a fundamental work in classical economics. His work investigated the roles of productivity, division of labor, and free markets. In 1790, Adam Smith died in Edinburgh. Now moving on to more of his ideas. Adam Smith is commonly known as the father of economics and the champion of free markets. While he's most known for his significant contributions in the field of economics, Smith also shared his philosophy concerning the nature of humans. Although it's not suggested that he found truth, Smith provided his philosophical contribution with the intention of leaving a legacy and enhancing our understanding of what makes humankind function most constructively. However, the views expressed by Smith on the nature of humans are not organized in one place. Rather, they are spread throughout his work and require being inferred from remarks made in documents, including The Theory of Moral Sentiments and The Wealth of Nations. Furthermore, Smith's philosophy on human nature is not necessarily innovative because his attitudes were widely shared in the 18th century, but it nonetheless brings more information to the understanding of his economics. The legacy of Adam Smith as an economics has overshadowed key aspects of his moral philosophical vision. Smith's assumption of human beings shows that he believed the human condition was unique in nature because the connection of human reason and human frailty that places people in an unusual and problematic position. He claims that human reason allows us to dominate the earth as well as have the constructive capacity to develop resources and to wealth beyond the requirement for survival. However, the addition of human frailty brings destructive interpersonal conflict in which each person seeks to capture a larger share of the resources. This confliction is resolved by his belief in the possibility of a constructive liberal society derived from his assumption that humans are capable of many motives, including justice, if properly developed. Adam Smith deals extensively with human psychology in The Theory of Moral Sentiments. The apparent purpose of this document was to reveal the motives for what is generally called feelings and acts of goodwill. Smith explained that no matter how selfish the person is, it is part of human nature to be dependent on the happiness of others. Therefore, Smith claims that sympathy is the basis for our concern for others. For example, we form our ideas of how others feel by considering how we would feel in the same circumstance. Although the emotions may not have the same intensity, they are the same kind. Another point by Smith is that it is not the love of mankind which makes the man of humanity willing to make this sacrifice, but rather his ability to see himself through the eyes of an impartial spectator. Meaning the way people are seen in the eyes of others is what motivates them to make decisions in the interests of others. Smith viewed benevolence as being most prominent within families and increasingly weaker as relationships get more distant. In The Wealth of Nations, self-love is evident, yet Adam Smith's views have to be inferred from incidental remarks. The effect of self-love or socially destructive passions are more commonly known in the activities involving merchants and manufacturers, but Smith indicates that all men, regardless of their occupations, are mostly the same. Smith viewed the less agreeable qualities of human as productive of good. For example, he claimed self-interest promotes industry, resentment discourages aggressive actions by others, vanity leads to acts of kindness, and so on. He then goes on to suggest that one can hardly be upset by the actions of people when it is known they are incapable of acting otherwise. Many economists argue that there is an inconsistency between Smith's two major works. In the theory of moral sentiments, he assumes natural harmony exists and man's actions are influenced by benevolence. Yet in The Wealth of Nations, he seems to have abandoned a belief in natural harmony and benevolence among humans. Furthermore, Smith's views of citizenship is imperfect and have been limited in its application to contemporary issues involving citizenship. While Smith appears to dismiss the importance of citizenship, it nevertheless has significant implications that play a role in both the theory of moral sentiments and The Wealth of Nations. Smith's consideration of citizenship was made clear by student notes that report him saying that citizenship entitles one to privileges, the most significant being the advantage to elect and be elected. In addition, notes indicate Smith's thought that citizenship is generally determined by birth. To Smith, the two principles that guide the good citizen generally coincide and lead to the same conduct in peaceable and quiet times. However, in times of public discontent, the two principles may come into conflict. People have to decide whether public welfare, which prompts allegiance to authority, should take precedence over an obligation to property rights as informed by the civil contract. In The Wealth of Nations, Smith found that according to the system of natural liberty, the sovereign has only three duties to attend to: the duty of protecting the society from the violence and invasion of other independent societies, and the duty of protecting as much as possible every other member of the society from the injustice or oppression of other members, or the duty of establishing an administration of justice, and finally the duty of creating and maintaining certain public works and certain public institutions which should never be for the interests of any individual or small number of individuals. When Smith mentions the political power or authority of the sovereign, he explains that from the very nature of things, the power of the sovereign must be absolute. The sovereign has an undoubted title to be obedient of the subjects. However, regardless of the foundation of this obedience, there are certain limits to the power of the sovereign, which if he exceeds, the subject may with justice make resistance. Smith argues that even if such obedience is found voluntarily, the subject must have a right of resistance, and if the sovereign abuses the trust established by the people. Given that allegiance is not based on property rights or justice, it is very difficult to determine what cases people should comply with one principle rather than the other. Smith's views on the role of the state suggest that government should limit its activities to administer justice, enforcing private property rights, and defending the nation against aggression. His argument is that the further a government gets from this limited role, the more the government strays from the ideal path. For Smith, the state is based on two counterbalancing principles: utility and authority. However, the state does not rule only by authority based on power or fear. Rather, the state must promote general interests and utility to gain the respect of the ruled. Smith claims that allegiance to a leader can be sustained only if the leader advances policies that promote the welfare of the whole society of his fellow citizens. To Smith, the state is an individual in the sense that it expresses the collective ideals of the members who make it up. Therefore, the state is not derived from some ideal commands or prearranged wills of its members. In The Wealth of Nations, Smith establishes the concept that the invisible hand of the market competition automatically transforms individual self-interest into the common good. Smith's proposition is that in an economic system that allows individuals to pursue their own self-interest, under conditions of free competition and common law would result in a self-regulating and highly prosperous economy that generates the most welfare for the greatest number of people. Therefore, Smith argues that eliminating restrictions on prices, labor, and trade will result in advancing the common good through universal opulence, which extends itself to the lowest ranks of the people by offering lower prices, higher wages, and better products. Democracy and capitalism are commonly associated, and our current political discourse often assumes that the role of the state is to further capitalistic freedom. Although Smith's formation of the theory of capitalism in the Wealth of Nations and the writing of the Declaration of Independence occurred in the same year, they seemingly developed separately. The timing suggests that those who signed on to the Declaration could not have been thinking about capitalism as discussed by Smith when describing government and the rights of individuals. Furthermore, it cannot be assumed that the Constitution was grounded on the theory of capitalism so shortly after the Wealth of Nations was published. Nevertheless, democracy resembles a marketplace where individuals come together, interact, form unions, and create government. When individuals come together in a marketplace, it creates community, society, and government without being pre-established. To Smith, democracy does not guarantee that we will do the right thing or the best thing. Rather, democracy provides the marketplace out of which our politics and policies grow. One contemporary issue that it would be a major concern of Adam Smith is the interference of free trade that has come from tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump. In this situation, the President of the United States is going against capitalistic freedom by imposing taxes on imported items, particularly from China. While President Trump argues that this will benefit the economy of the United States, Adam Smith would argue that interference in the market is unnecessary and unbeneficial. Smith argues that eliminating restrictions on prices, labor, and trade will result in advancing the common good. As of December 2nd, 2018, it appears that President Donald Trump has taken some of the wisdom passed down by Adam Smith by agreeing not to increase tariffs on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods from 10% to 25%. This agreement between the United States and China indicates the opening up of both countries' markets, which Adam Smith would consider a step in the right direction. Thank you for listening.